You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Around every entry point and every clever attacker, Vectra sees the attacks others can't. How? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra's AI attack signal intelligence tells security teams where to focus, what matters. It wades through thousands of individual threat events so you don't have to. Attackers infiltrating your network? Vectra has AI on it. Attackers compromising your identities? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra AI, the integrated signal powering your XDR. Visit vectra.ai/showme to learn more. That's vectra.ai/showme to learn more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Research Saturday. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is our weekly conversation with researchers and analysts tracking down the threats and vulnerabilities, solving some of the hard problems, and protecting ourselves in a rapidly evolving cyberspace. Thanks for joining us.
What started as an incident with another threat actor evolved into another incident with another threat actor in the same environment. So it was an interesting turnout of events, I would say.
That's Amnon Kushner, Director of Incident Response at Signia. The research we're discussing today is titled China Nexus Threat Group Velvet Ant Leverages a Zero Day to Deploy Malware on Cisco Nexus Switches.
And then we came across Velvet Ant as part of our post-breach monitoring and research.
Interesting. Well, let's start with some descriptions here. Who is Velvet Ant, and where do you suppose they're coming from?
Okay, so we believe that Velvet Ant is a China Nexus state sponsor. We cannot say this for sure, but the indications seems to be that way, since we've seen some usage of IP addresses that are correlated with plugins and Shadowbed, which are known to be used by Chinese Nexus threat actors.
I see. And who do they seem to be targeting here?
Okay, so in terms of the client, of course, we cannot disclose them due to confidentiality that we are keeping with our clients. But I can say that they are a large corporate, and their main goal of Velvet Ant is espionage.
Well, let's dig into some of the tactics, techniques, and procedures here. How does someone find themselves in the crosshairs of Velvet Ant?
Okay, so Velvet Ant, one of the things that characterize this threat actor is the adaptability. So they will do whatever it takes in order to resume their operations and to increase the level of evasiveness throughout the operations if they are being detected. So maybe a quick brief about the history with Velvet Ant. So Velvet Ant started or was first discovered since they operated on some Windows devices that were up to date, and we were able to detect them using their tools, which was plugins and Shadowpad. And later on, they shifted their operation towards network devices and legacy Windows servers that are not updated and does not support many modern EDRs. And after we've detected them moving their operations towards there, targeting specifically legacy F5 load balancers, and we published this as the first blog post about Velvet Ant, basically exposing them for the first time. They also shifted their operation towards Cisco Nexus switch devices in order to be even more evasive on that sense. So they do have the ability to adapt, and they are very sophisticated to operate from legacy F5 load balancers, and the ability to exploit a zero-day on Cisco devices is something that we call it using the big guns. And this is definitely escalation in terms of their evasiveness and sophistication. And this is all to have their operation up and running.
Well, your research goes into quite some detail about how they go after this Cisco switch appliance. Can you share some of the details there? What exactly did they do?
Yes. So if we're taking into consideration the operation on the Cisco Nexus switch devices, so we've seen them basically leveraging a zero-day exploitation of the type of command injection in order to shift between the NXOS level, which is the Cisco operating system, towards the Linux underlay. The way that the Cisco Nexus switch devices are built, and specifically the N7K in that case, is that there is the OS level that Cisco provides, which the user interacts in order to manage the switch, which is called the NXOS. And then there is the Linux underlay, which is running this NXOS. And what they did is using a zero-day in order to, you can call it either jailbreak or escape the context of the NXOS, and then be able to execute code freely on the Linux underlay. After they achieved this capability to execute code on the Linux level, then they deployed a malware that is comprised of two open source tools in order to have the ability to perform a remote code execution without the need of authenticating to the Nexus device, and B, to tunnel their traffic from or via the Nexus device itself. This is the high level of it. And when we are talking about the malware itself, as we call it, Velvet Shell insignia, this is a malware that comprised of these two open source tools. One is called TinyShell, and the other is called TreeProxy. And the version of TinyShell that Velvet Ant utilized is a specific version, not the most popular one, but it is a version that supports, I would say, tampering the history log files in the Linux layer. So basically, whenever they will execute a command via the malware, it will not be recorded on the Linux. So it's another way of keeping the operation hidden from eyesight.
We'll be right back. Quick question. Do your end users always work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? If the answer is no, then my next question is, how do you keep company data safe on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device, because it solves the problem traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at 1password.com/XAM. That's 1password.com/XAM. When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing Trust Center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. And how sophisticated would you say this group is?
So I would say that they are very sophisticated. Um, and given the fact that they will utilize the zero-day on a Nexus device, which is something that is very uncommon, we need to say here that the Nexus device or Nexus switch device is not the day-to-day switch that you will have in your home. Okay, this is core switch of data centers. Okay, it will not be found in your office or in your home, only on data centers, mainly on data centers. And the fact that they thought about moving their operations to be originating or going through these areas will allow them not only the superiority in order to access many different segments in the network, but to be very evasive, since the traffic is generated from the switch itself and not from a device, can be quite confusing for teams that are investigating such activity.
Once they are able to have access to one of these Cisco devices, can you give us an idea of the spectrum of capabilities they have? What sorts of things are they able to do to exfiltrate data?
Yes. So after they are compromising a switch device, they are implanting this Velvet Shell malware in order to execute commands on the switch itself, in order to have more reconnaissance in terms of the network segments, and then to tunnel their traffic into other areas in the network. From there, they can either try to compromise other machines or devices in the network in order to collect data from them, or even have another stronghold in the network, or they can access all kind of potential objectives that they have in the application level and generate such traffic.
So, what are your recommendations for organizations to best protect themselves?
So, since here we are talking about something that is not traditionally monitored, such Nexus devices, mainly these kind of devices are monitored for the IT manners. For example, for the utilization of the device and making sure that it's healthy. But here we are talking about monitoring it for the security purposes. So, in order to monitor, what we implemented is two-way monitoring. One of them is the NetFlow protocol that Cisco provides that can be enabled on the switch level, and the other thing is sending syslog of logs that are needed to be increased. In the default manner, they are not configured. Usually, they are not configured properly, and then you need to raise the level of auditing, for example, to AAA level 6, and then forward it into a SIEM solution or to centralize the place in order to monitor for suspicious commands that are being executed on the device itself. And this is specific about the Cisco Nexus switch. As I mentioned, since they are trying to escape the NXOS and going into the Linux, if you are suspecting that the switch is or was indeed compromised, then you will have to go via Cisco in order to get their support to extract logs from the device or from the Linux level itself. This is what, by the way, what we did, and Cisco helped us to collect the artifacts from the Linux level. And then this is the way that we have discovered the the Velvet Shell. So I would say to keep an eye on what's happening on the NXOS layer, and then if there is a suspicion, to escalate it to Cisco or to Signia. We can also assist on that sense.
I mean, it sounds like it's quite likely that organizations could go quite a long time without having any suspicion that they had an issue here. If everything's working the way that it's supposed to, and Velvet Ant is preventing things from being logged the way that they typically are, there's not a whole lot of red flags indicating that you have a problem.
Correct. So it all starts with a good visibility on the network and periodic threat hunts. Okay, this is also important in order to make sure that we are not missing anything in the day-to-day routines. So from time to time, we do recommend to do periodic threat hunts that focusing on different areas on the network that might be relevant for as crown jewels. Okay, or let's say in the case of Velvet Ant for espionage, and then to try to scope a specific threat hunt that will answer these all kind of scenarios that shouldn't be occurred. Okay. For example, in the case of detecting Velvet Ant operating from the Cisco Nexus switch, we had a different means of monitoring in other places in the network, and therefore we were able to caught this very unusual activity.
All right. Well, I think I have everything I need for our story here. Is there anything I missed? Anything I haven't asked you that you think it's important to share?
So just maybe a word for the public. We believe that Insignia, we believe that sharing is caring, and this is a very, I would say, effective way to fight cybercrime around the world. And this is why we are also sharing whatever we can about Velvet Ant and other threat actors in general. So we really encourage the rest of the community to follow this standard. And if you have suspicions that any suspicion that Velvet Ant is targeting you or have seen any of these IOCs, we really recommend to contact us since we have the expertise and knowledge with Velvet Ant and similar actors.
Our thanks to Amnon Kushner from Signia for joining us. The research is titled China Nexus Threat Group Velvet Ant Leverages a Zero-Day to Deploy Malware on Cisco Nexus Switches. We'll have a link in the show notes. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester. Our executive producer is Jennifer Eiben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilby is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next time.